Let's talk about this picture. It centers around Mr. and Mrs. Dubois. They were some of the town of Hackenshaw's favorite neighbors, but they had a dark side to them. But first, we're gonna enjoy some pizza.
I just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a joke.
Now, a lot of people have been tagging me in this video, so I'm here to explain the backstory to this whole thing.
There's a lot of shit on P. Diddy being connected to a lot of people's deaths. So recently, there's been an investigation going on and the theories that P. Diddy has connections to Michael Jackson's death. No way.
I'm back. It's your boy FITTIE, and today we're going to be taking a look at these TikTok videos. If you guys like the chain, check the link down in the description. We're just going to hop in. Let's try to get to 1,000 likes this video.
Terrifying last words people said right before passing away. An ER physician says he's heard many last words before, but this one was the most terrifying. There was a man who was taking his last breaths as he succumbed to renal failure. And right before he passed away, he said, "I see a bright light, horses, no eyes." Then he started screaming, "No, no, no." And as he yelled, he suddenly woke up, looked up towards the ceiling, and with his last breath said, "I understand." Then right after, he passed away. According to this ER physician, this could be provoked by certain neurotransmitters during organ failure. But sometimes he still thinks that maybe that patient saw more than we're led to believe. Let me know if I should make a part 2 and follow for more.
This is why I would never hire a stranger for a kid's birthday party. And if the photo's not bad enough, the mystery behind it is so much worse. And a reminder before I dive in that if you like all things spooky and true crime, check out my podcast. There's a link to it in my profile. So in the 1940s, the McLaren family in Houston, Texas was having a birthday party for their daughter, Rose. They hired a clown for the party, but an hour before the party started, they get a call from the company saying that the clown they hired was no longer available. They were going to send someone else in his place. And the parents were like, okay, fine, whatever. But then this man shows up to the party. And the kids are all terrified of him. No one really wants to take photos. The man stayed at the party for about 20 minutes and then just disappeared. But get this. After he left, the clown that they hired showed up to the party. And he apologized for being late. And the mother is like, "What are you doing here? You canceled on us." And the clown's like, "No, I didn't." And it was at that moment that one of the parents noticed that this little boy pictured here was missing. The little boy was never found, and the identity of this man remains a mystery even today.
No, I don't really hate clowns, but I'm really not a big fan of clowns. I remember the 2016 clown attack thing that was happening around Halloween. I was not a big fan of that. If you have any weird experiences with clowns, let me know your stories in the comments.
Creepy unsolved mysteries that might creep you out. Number 10, Antoinette Kyodo. In the early hours of April 6, 1986, 9-year-old Antoinette was abducted by 2 men in a brown van from her home. The following year after the disappearance, Gallup, New Mexico police received the following eerie, frantic phone call.
Gallup Police Department. Hello? I'm Antoinette Kyodo. Okay, whereabouts in Albuquerque? Who said it could use a phone? Hello? Antoinette, where are you?
4 years later, in Carson, New Mexico, a waitress at a restaurant noticed a couple and a teenage girl who matched the description of Antoinette. After the girl and the couple left, the waitress found the following note under the teenage girl's plate. Antoinette has been missing for 35 years.
This Polish woman is claiming to be the missing Madeline McCann. But did you know there's age progression photos done of Madeline that could help us know what she would look like today? In 2007, Madeline was taken from her family's bedroom while they were on vacation in Portugal. And immediately the parents came under fire because they did leave the kids asleep in the apartment by themselves while they went to dinner with friends. This is the official age progressed photo of Madeline to age 9, and this is the woman who's now claiming that she is Madeline. And this woman does have some of Madeline's signature features. Here you can see a black speck that looks like a pupil in Madeline's eye, which is something they both share. She's also claiming that she has a lot of missing memories from childhood, but the eye speck does seem to be her most convincing argument. But German prosecutors actually believe that Madeline is no longer alive. And 2 people believe they saw this man carrying a small girl towards the beach around the time that Madeline's parents first noticed that she was missing. But that being said, it's not completely impossible that she would be alive today.
How the hell do they make progression pictures? I'm sitting here thinking like, yo, let's say, God forbid, I die right now. Could they make a progression picture of me when I'm like 65? That'd be odd.
Let's talk about this picture. It centers around Mr. and Mrs. Dubois. They were some of the town of Hackenshaw's favorite neighbors, but they had a dark side to them. But first, we're gonna enjoy some pizza. This is like my favorite pizza. It's from Marco's Pizza. Reminds me of Jersey because I'm from Jersey. You see, they were kind to everyone. Even invited people who just moved into town for dinners. They would also have the best decorations for holidays as well. Their house would always win the contest for best decorated in the town. People just loved their Christmas lights and their Halloween decorations. In the beginning of October 1876, they started throwing parties for the kids. All the kids from around the town would come, even from outside the town. It was fun. They played games, they ate candy, and everyone just had a good time. But out of the 20 kids that came over that night, about 4 went missing. And after about 3 weeks of searching, the case went slow and they gave up. Halloween finally came around, and the contest for the best decorations, of course, went to the Dubois. That night while trick-or-treating, one of the boys in town named Sam went up to one of the decorations. When he grabbed the mask off, he realized it was one of the children who went missing. The child was stuffed and put on display in front of the yard as a decoration. The Dubois, who saw this and not wanting to get caught, grabbed the little kid inside, adding him to their collection. No one suspected a thing because the Dubois were so kind and nice to everyone. It wasn't until years later on their deathbed that they admitted at throwing parties every year to steal a child or 3 and told police that they could find all the missing children in their basement. The reason they did it was because they needed decorations realistic enough so they could always win those contests.
Why is everyone talking about this woman? It's this woman, 59-year-old Debbie Collier, who was a mother and office manager who was found charred alive in the northeast of Georgia. But while I'm sitting here and I'm, researching this case, it's even stranger than I thought it was. Something is deeply off with this story. So here's what we know. September 10th, she is reported missing, and the following day, her van is found, but she's not inside. So the daughter comes forward. She says that, her mom doesn't have any history of mental illness. She wouldn't be trying to hurt herself. So what, happened here? Well, later that day, after the van was found, they go deeper into the woods where Debbie is found on a tarp, described as burned alive. This was a tarp she bought herself at the Dollar Tree, shortly before she was found. Stranger than that, her daughter comes forward and says before she was found, her mom Venmo'd her $2,385 along with this cryptic message. Does that not seem like an oddly specific amount, though?
That's creepy. The mom literally said in the text, they are not going to let me go. Something about the house key. Yo, that's scary. She said, love you, I'm gonna be gone. Yo, what?
Most terrifying demonic activity ever caught on camera.
Bobby, is that you? Bobby. I get it. I get it, man. You're just gonna stare at each other for what? You got me. I don't know what the fuck their problem is. I'm gonna keep doing this shit. I'm just gonna stare at them then. Fuck it, right? Man. Come on, get out, man. Get out. Come on. Go. No, just go to your room. It's fine. All right. Yeah. I know, Diddy. You got me. Jim, you got me. You got me, man. You got... Okay, it's good. And just stay in your room.
Honestly, I was gonna say, big applause to that guy for actually running away. A lot of people are like, oh my god, I gotta go investigate. But he was like, nah, I'm getting out of there. Big W's for that. But it was just the fact that he heard the doorbell ring. He just saw that weird coincidence. So instead of peeping through the window, peeping through the hole, see what's going on, bro just opens the door. He was like, oh, someone's ringing the door. Let me just open it. Come on, bro. He was this close to me in common sense. This close. This close.
The oldest traceable body on Mount Everest is considered to be that of George Mallerie, an English mountaineer who was part of the first British expeditions up the mountain in the early 1920s. He and his hiking partner Andrew Irvine were last seen about 800 feet from the summit before disappearing. In 1999, an expedition up the mountain sought to find Mallerie, and they did. Well preserved too. Injuries sustained on his body and circumstantial evidence give some idea as to what happened to him, namely that he slipped, fell and conked himself in the forehead with his own ice axe. Ugh. We still don't know if Mallerie and Irvine reached the summit before their fatal accident, but some in the field believe that Mallerie did. They also think he left a photo of his wife at the summit because it wasn't on his body when it was found, and he always carried it. We don't know much about Irvine because his body is still unlocated. And on an eerie note, Mallerie and Irvine had a camera with them to record the historic event, which, if ever found, would likely give us some fascinating insight into their journey.
You know, Mount Everest is definitely an adventure. It's definitely something where you could be like, yo, this is one of the craziest things I've ever done. But I'm sitting here thinking, like, is the risk really worth it? I mean, I know she said they were going to a summit, so it's a completely different reason, but like, that's a risky hike, man. Like, you're playing with death at that point. But I'm pretty sure there are some people that have climbed. There's a lot of people that have climbed Mount Everest and made it alive. So, but you're playing a game with that one.
Let's talk about this picture. It centers around Mr. and Mrs. Dubois. They were some of the town of Hackenshaw's favorite neighbors, but they had a dark side to them. But first, we're gonna enjoy some pizza. This is like my favorite pizza. It's from Marco's Pizza. Reminds me of Jersey because I'm from Jersey. You see, they were kind to everyone, even invited people who just moved into town for dinners. They would also have the best decorations for holidays as well. Their house would always win the contest for best decorated in the town. People just loved their Christmas lights and their Halloween decorations. In the beginning of October 1876, they started throwing parties for the kids. All the kids from around the town would come, even from outside the town. It was fun. They played games, they ate candy, everyone just had a good time. But out of the 20 kids that came over that night, about 4 went missing. And after about 3 weeks of searching, the case went slow and they gave up. Halloween finally came around, and the contest for the best decorations, of course, went to the Dubois. That night while trick-or-treating, one of the boys in town named Sam went up to one of the decorations. When he grabbed the mask off, he realized it was one of the children who went missing. The child was stuffed and put on display in front of the yard as a decoration. The Dubois, who saw this and not wanting to get caught, grabbed the little kid inside, adding him to their collection. No one suspected a thing because the Dubois was so kind and nice to everyone. It wasn't until years later on their deathbed that they admitted at throwing parties every year to steal a child or 3 and told police that they could find all the missing children in their basement. The reason they did it was because they needed decorations realistic enough so they could always win those contests.
You know, I know that this is like the 1900s, but dude, I guarantee you could find better decorations at your local store. Why are you using real humans? Like, honestly, I don't think Halloween or even Christmas is that crazy where you need to use real people just to win like some makeshift contest that's not gonna benefit you whatsoever. Like, that's an extreme. Like, they're kind of weird for that, I'm not gonna lie.
These are serial killers that got caught for being idiots. And yes, this is a series, so make sure you follow along. This is David Berkowitz, also known as the Son of Sam. He's best known for being the serial unaliver who believed that his neighbor's dog was telling him to commit the crimes. And he was really hard to catch. His attacks felt random and lacked pattern, other than the fact that a lot of his victims were women with long brown hair. But the thing that did this man in was that he parked illegally while committing one of the crimes. Cecilia Davis was out walking her dog one night when she saw a car being ticketed. And then out of nowhere, she sees this figure come towards her with what looks like a gun in his hand. She freaks out and runs away, but hears 2 gunshots get fired behind her. The next day, she learns that 2 people, Stacy Moskowitz and Robert Violante, had been shot in that area. So she calls the police and tells them everything she saw that night. The man with the gun, hearing the gunshots, and seeing the car with the ticket. And the cops did a real quick search through their database and found that the car had been registered to Berkowitz, who was already on their radar. And the second they went to question him about it, he confessed to everything. Erica's family told her they were going on vacation in Lake Tahoe, when in reality they were dropping her off at a troubled teen wilderness program that she would not survive. Erica Harvey was just 15 years old when she was dropped off at the Catherine Freer Wilderness Program. The program promised Erica's family that they could get her off drugs, but the staff were not trained very well. The first day that she was there, the kids all went on a really long hike, and Erica started showing symptoms of dehydration. Erica was also on antipsychotic medication, which was something the staff did not have any experience with. So when she started speaking gibberish and her eyes rolled into the back of her head, they thought she was being dramatic. And when she fell over backwards into a ravine, they completely ignored her. Finally, after an hour, they went to go check on her, but Erica didn't have a pulse. The staff called a medical helicopter, but they didn't know where they were, so they gave them the wrong coordinates. By the time Erica saw a doctor, it was 5 hours later, and she didn't have a chance. And programs like Erica's still exist today, trapping kids like prisoners because they're minors and can't sign themselves out. This week I interview a survivor who was gone for 3.5 years in the troubled teen industry because she was 14 years old when she was taken.
Dude, how are you gonna think someone's joking when they start speaking gibberish, eyes roll back, and just fell into a freaking ravine, bro? No one's doing that as a joke. Unless it's like a boy cries wolf situation where, you know, for those who don't know, The Boy Who Cried Wolf is basically a story of a guy that just kept joking like, oh, wolf, wolf, and everyone's like, oh my god, it's a wolf. And then they just realize that he just keeps lying about it until one day there's an actual wolf, and then he just gets murdered.
On the evening of September 10th, 2002, 31-year-old Miroslav Kuklish was entering an underwater cave off the coast of Croatia, trying to catch up with his 4 dive buddies. He had entered the water about 10 minutes after them because while they were on the surface, the 4 had explained to him that they were going to check out this underwater cave. But Miroslav had told them he wanted nothing to do with this cave. He was just going to go on an open water night dive. So they said okay, and they went without him. Unbeknownst to Miroslav, as soon as the 4 had entered this 2-meter wide hole in the bottom of the ocean, they had immediately recognized it was well beyond their skill level, and they had turned around and gotten right out of there. Unbeknownst to them, though, Miroslav had made the exact opposite decision, and as soon as he got in the water, he went right down to the cave entrance and barreled down after him, and I mean, he really went for it. Now, the way that this cave is set up is there's a 15-meter deep chute, which leads to 2 different passageways, which lead to 2 different underwater caverns, the shallower one, or the upper gallery, and the deeper one, the lower gallery. The bottom of the lower gallery is about 54 meters or 180 feet deep. Okay, so what Miroslav does is he dives down this 15-meter corridor. Now, bear in mind, the walls are super narrow in these corridors, and you're kicking up silt the whole time, so you can't see anything. And where the 3 meet, it's almost impossible to tell which is which, because again, you can't see, and unless you know this cave like the back of your hand, I mean, being underwater is really disorienting. You don't know if you're going to the deep one, the shallow one, or up to the exit. It's kind of just a guess if you don't really know the cave. So he goes immediately down, and he goes immediately into the deep gallery. He makes it all the way down to 165 feet before he realizes he needs to turn around and get out of there. So he makes his ascent back up, and he makes his way back up to where the 3 separate again. And he needs to find the exit. But instead of finding the exit, he goes into the shallow gallery. And now he is running out of air, and he really needs to find the exit. So he goes back up to where they all 3 separate, and he's doing this probably mostly by feel now, because again, with the silt, you can't see. So he has a 50-50 shot. But instead of picking the exit, he picks the way he just came from, and he goes back down into the deep gallery. And at this point, we know when he hits the deep gallery again, he runs out of air. And he finds that shallow air pocket at the top of the deep gallery, but he's only got a few minutes of air in that little pocket, and he knows that. We know he was there for 5 minutes from his dive computer before he ultimately decides that instead of drowning, he's going to take his dive knife and end things his way. So he takes out his dive knife and he drives it 11 centimeters all the way to the hilt into the left side of his chest. Unfortunately, he would still drown a few minutes after this. We know this from the autopsy report. A police diver would also drown trying to recover his body.
If you stab yourself in the lung, obviously you're going to still drown from your own blood, if I'm being honest. Like, it's not going to kill you instantly. It's not GTA where, like, you're like, and you're just gone, you know? Like, you're obviously going to drown from your own blood. And not only that, you're going to be so much distress that you're going to fall back into the water from the sinkhole. So I think that was a stupid decision. But, you know, with the lack of oxygen and everything just going wrong, it was just, you know, a bad decision by him. It's understandable, but at the same time, I feel bad for him, dude, because he didn't even really want to do that. He didn't even know his friends weren't even going to do it. They realized that that was just a task that they couldn't handle, and they just dipped out, and he thought they were in there. So RIP to him. It's a sad story, and the police that tried to rescue him.
You can get addicted to a certain kind of sadness, like resignation to the end, always there. I just killed Cassie. We just left her house. This is not a fucking joke.
A lot of people have been tagging me in this video, so I'm here to explain the backstory to this whole thing. Now, before I begin the video, I have an announcement to make. First things first, I just posted my first YouTube video on the Soviet Lycans case, so if you want to check that out, please do. Link is in the bio. You can also make fun of me for my old YouTube videos. I don't care. Also, in spirit of Scream 6 coming out tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the Scream Killers case. The girl you see in this video is named Cassie Jo Stoddart, the teenager who was killed by her classmates for fun. Now, on September 22nd, 2006, 16-year-old Cassie was house sitting for her aunt and uncle just a few miles away from her own home. Now, she was known to family and friends for being a straight A student and very responsible. During that night, she ended up inviting her boyfriend, Matt Beckham, to join her at the house. Beckham ended up inviting another friend. His name was Tori Adamick, who ended up bringing along Brian Draper, another friend. Now, these two boys had a death list that contained the name of several of their classmates. One of those names was Cassie Jo Stoddart. Now, the two boys spent about 2 hours in Cassie's house before leaving that night. However, Cassie didn't know that Draper left the basement door unlocked so that he and Admick could get back in. Later that same evening, when the two boys returned, they parked their car down the street, put on dark clothing, gloves, and masks, then snuck back into the residence of Cassie through the basement door they left unlocked. While Stoddart and Beckham watched TV in the living room, the two boys proceeded to make a loud noise in order to lure Stoddart and Beckham downstairs into the basement to quote-unquote scare them. However, when that didn't work, the two boys then located the breaker and turned off the lights in the house. This obviously frightened Cassie, and her boyfriend Beckham called his mother to ask permission to stay the night so that Cassie could be at ease. However, Beckham's mother refused and insisted to have Cassie to sleep over at Beckham's house, but Cassie declined as she had to watch over her aunt and uncle's house, and she couldn't leave the family dogs alone, as they were seen growling and staring down at the basement, what looked to be nothing. So Beckham ended up leaving her at the care of the family dog. At around 10:30 p.m., Beckham's mom picked him up from Cassie's uncle's house, leaving Cassie alone inside the house. Keep in mind the two boys are still inside the basement. Beckham then called the two boys to see if he can catch up later that night to hang out. He can barely hear the two boys when they answered, as they were whispering very, very low. Now, Beckham assumed that they were watching a movie. Of course, they were still in the basement. Both boys were armed with daggers, and Cassie was sound asleep on the living room couch. So Draper, one of the boys, ended up opening and slamming shut one of the closet doors to catch Cassie's attention. However, when this failed, they decided to just attack her. The two boys stabbed Cassie approximately 30 times. 12 of those stab wounds were fatal. Two boys then left her body to bleed out and fled the scene. In fact, before doing this, they videotaped the plan all on camera. Her body wasn't recovered until 2 days after her murder, on September 24, 2006. When it was discovered, it was all covered in blood and riddled with deep lacerations. It didn't take long for investigators to determine who the murderers were, as Tori and Brian were the last two people in Cassie's house, and they were the last two people to see her alive. Investigators also found the tape where they confessed to doing this, as well as found the pile of where the black clothing was, the gloves, the weapons, and the mask, all trying to be burnt up. On April 17, 2007, the two boys were found guilty of murder in the first degree. Both boys received life in prison without the possibility of parole, plus 30 years, and they are still serving their sentence to this day.
Honestly, them boys deserve life in prison. I'm happy they got life in prison. Because I'm like, dude, that was so unnecessary. Just for fun.
On May 1st, 2020, in Charleston County, South Carolina, 58-year-old Cynthia Covert was over at her friend and client Barbara's house doing Barbara's nails. And they were doing this appointment on Barbara's enclosed back porch, which overlooked her yard and then a large freshwater pond. Now, Barbara would later state that Cynthia was acting very strangely. Normally, she would be very, very professional, but today, not so much. She was talking a lot. She was just super bubbly. She was talking about her boyfriend who was coming to visit, and it was just totally unlike her. And she had showed up with a bottle of wine, although Barbara said she didn't witness her drink any of it. But anyways, the appointment carries on, and about halfway through, Cynthia looks over at the pond, and she notices that just off the bank in the water, there is a 10-foot or just over 3-meter long American alligator, and she's fascinated by this. And Barbara says, oh yeah, he's been here for the last 20 years, we just don't mess with him. So the appointment continues on, and they finish up, and when they do, Barbara begins to tidy up the porch, move chairs back where they were, when she turns around and notices that Cynthia has made her way down through the yard to the bank, and she's standing really close to this alligator, taking pictures of it on her cell phone. And Barbara immediately begins to yell and scream at her, hey, get back from there. I witnessed this alligator take a deer off the shore just yesterday. And Cynthia yells back at Barbara, and she says, well, I don't look like a deer. Now, Barbara's husband at this point can hear this commotion, and so can a next door neighbor, and both men make their way outside when Cynthia does the unthinkable. She steps in the water with the alligator and she reaches out and she's going to try and pet it. And as soon as she does this, this 10-foot long alligator lunges forward and grabs her by the left leg and begins to drag her out into deeper water. The two men start sprinting down to the water. The neighbor grabs a rope. They get down there at the same time, and the neighbor throws the rope out to Cynthia. She grabs it, and now the two men are having a tug of war between them and this alligator for Cynthia. And then Cynthia would look up at them and just very calmly say, "Well, I guess that's the last time I'll ever do that." And then this alligator would put her into a death roll. And it would take her underwater, and they would not see her again. They called the police, the fire department, the police show up. For 15 minutes, they don't see anything, but then the alligator surfaces. It's still got Cynthia's body in its mouth, and then it immediately takes her back down before it resurfaces again. The police shoot the alligator 5 times, once in the head, 4 more times. It releases her. They retrieve her body, which is intact, but her left leg was totally mangled, and she had unfortunately drowned in that 15 minutes.
I was watching that and I was like, yo, I know so many parents that are exactly like that woman that's just like, oh, I'm just trying to pet this really horrifying, destructive animal. In my head, bro, natural selection. Like, you know, there's just people that have the common sense to know, you know, I'm not going to go close to this thing because it definitely sees me as a prey or even a predator and it will still try to hurt me. So I'm going to just keep my distance. But she was trying to pet the... Bro, come on, dude. Natural selection, like I'm saying. Natural selection.
There's a lot of shit on P. Diddy being connected to a lot of people's deaths. So recently, there's been an investigation going on and the theories that P. Diddy has connections to Michael Jackson's death. No way. And it's known that he hates the industry. There was a video of him at an award ceremony. They try to fuck up his career because Michael Jackson basically owned over 50% of Sony Records.
These guys work really hard at their craft. The companies take advantage of them. They never thought that this performer, myself, would outthink them. I own half of Sony's publishing and I'm leaving them. They're very angry at me because of it, but...
How is this connected to P. Diddy, right? P. Diddy, he had a head of security, was a guy that any employees that P. Diddy has, if you ever get pulled over in California or in Miami, to call this guy, Fahim, and he'll take care of it. He'll make any problem, any police trouble disappear. So he has power in the police. Michael Jackson died in 2009. That guy, Fahim, in 2008, he graduated from college. He graduated with a bachelor's degree in real estate and business and had no experience in security or anything like that. So how is a guy who just graduated college the head of security already for Michael Jackson, the biggest music artist of all time? Because he was there at Michael Jackson's testimony and he was the second person on the scene whenever Michael Jackson died. Because first it was obviously the doctor who was trying to...
Yeah, that is really suspect. I don't know, man. P. Diddy, there's a lot of things going on with him. Hopefully, like, whatever is true comes out as true. Whatever is false comes out as false. I don't even know, bro. That situation, I still don't even know what's even going on with him. Like, they're saying like a bunch of different stuff. I'm just like, I don't know. I definitely think he probably got Tupac killed. Michael Jackson, though, that might be a stretch. But someone like him, I wouldn't be surprised if he did get Michael Jackson killed. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I try to get me to 1,000 likes. I'd greatly appreciate it. Love y'all so much. Try to get me to 40K subs. Let's just keep rising, bro. Peace out.